everyone, and welcome to the Macaw
Podcast.
universe. And I'm one of two hosts, and my name is Micah Macaw.
My name is Jordan Macaw.
And you are the other host.
Yeah.
You know, I was listening back to our episode on Unbreakable, because I was editing it, and I said, I'm your host, and I think I was expecting you to say, and I'm your other host. And so it made it sound like I'm the host, and you're not a host.
I'm also the host.
But you're host. You hold equal shares in this endeavor. Is that not so? Say it ain't so.
I wouldn't say we do the equal amount of work.
Well, why?
Because you do way more work than me.
That is true, actually. I'll accept that.
You deserve more credit.
But as far as talking goes, we share the load.
Okay.
As far as the performative aspect of this podcast, it is equal.
Awesome.
But today, we are talking about M. Night Shyamalan's Split. So, last week we talked about Unbreakable. And here's the thing. I had kind of hoped that we would get into not really spoilers in case people wanted to listen along. And I'm just going to throw that out for this episode because there's too many Glass spoilers that we have to talk about.
But seriously, it's... I hope that no one's even listening to this if they haven't seen any of these movies, you know? Like, well, that's the beauty, but...
Yes, I would say if you haven't watched Glass and you're listening along, or you haven't watched Split, just stop the podcast. We're going to be here. That we have these set to never expire.
Anywhere.
And then come back, listen to the episode.
Yes.
So all the spoilers are out the window. Okay. But I did kind of cut you off. Did you have anything else to contribute? Okay. So... last we talked, he makes Unbreakable. After Unbreakable, let me pull up his filmography, because part of the whole thing about this series is talking about our boy, M. Night, right?
Mm-hmm.
He does Unbreakable, then he does a little movie called Signs.
Okay.
Now, if I recall, Signs is a pretty big hit.
You just I thought you said in the last episode it wasn't.
I think critically, not as much.
Okay.
Like critically...
well, no one cares about that.
You have a... well, I do.
I'm kidding. We're criticize. This podcast criticizes movies.
I know. I just don't... that's a little side note. I hate when people are like, yeah, well, the critics always... like labeling them this group. And it's like, I like critics. I don't like all of them. And I think they're wrong sometimes, but it's a job.
Their job is based on opinions.
Yeah. So... that has a 59 Metascore.
Okay.
So it's like right on the edge of like...
it's way above average.
Yeah.
That is way too low.
Yes. Then he does The Village, and that's when people start kind of waning on him, I would say.
The Village.
Village is a great movie. And then he does Lady in the Water, which is a movie that is actually... pretty delightful. A lot of problems. Not the most well-written movie, but
it's wholly original.
It's a wholly original
fairy tale.
fairy tale.
A fairy tale for his kids, and he did it.
And
I love that.
It's worth a watch.
Absolutely.
Maybe you watch it and you go, that's not good.
If you
but it's
finally
worth a watch.
want to see Paul Giamatti in a leading role, watch Lady in the Water.
Maybe that's why it didn't work.
I don't know. Maybe.
So people are like, eh. And then he does Lady in the Water. I mean, he does The Happening.
Yes.
Which does well, but people
famously
are like...
very bad movie.
Yeah, and that movie is a bad movie.
That movie came out in the height of me wanting all gore, so it worked for me at the time.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's rough.
Yeah, I would never want to watch that movie again. I just remember specifically the part when the guy sets the lawnmower to go over him.
Yeah.
And then the girl stabbing herself with her... like hair chopsticks.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And I think it was marketed as, if I'm remembering right, I think it was marketed as like the master of horror is finally doing an R movie. Because all his other movies are PG-13. And it's kind of like barely R. And it's not really the greatest. It's
just gory. That's it. That's the only thing.
If you watch it again, it's not actually that gory.
What was it? I know it was like the plants were doing it or something.
Yeah,
but
it was
like,
the earth.
What could you not do? It's kind of like Bird Box. Like you can't open your eyes.
I never saw that movie.
Well, you can't open your eyes.
Yeah.
So do you remember what it was? Like, did people just breathe something? Like, how come Mark Wahlberg made it through okay?
It was like the wind was carrying like a virus, basically.
So is he just running ahead of the wind?
Yeah, they're like outrunning it, basically.
Okay.
And then at the end, him and...
Zooey Deschanel.
Yeah, they like meet in... they just like walk into a field and they just accept it and they're totally fine. And it's like they defeated it by hugging.
Yeah, love wins.
Yeah, but it's just like, what?
Yeah.
And then it ends with, I think it shows a scene.
It's like in another country and it's starting in another country.
Yeah.
It's not over.
Yeah. So then he does The Last Airbender, which
Yes.
famously is horrible. Have not seen it.
Yeah.
Then he does After Earth.
Which has quite the interesting story. Oh, well, it stars Will Smith and Jaden Smith, and it's a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
It was a big effing flop, and apparently Will Smith basically directed the movie. He was in charge
Pretty
of the
much.
movie.
And it was his idea.
It was his idea. It was his baby. And it's kind of like, oh, let's just get a big director so people will actually see it. Not that Will Smith is not a draw. He absolutely is. So it's what's weird to me. I wonder if it's just two really big dudes butting heads and Shyamalan finally just conceding and being like, you know what? I'm making a lot of money for this job. I'm just going to do whatever he says because I can't handle it anymore. I wonder if it's a lot of that because it's a terrible movie and then you find out that Shyamalan really didn't do anything. I mean, he directed it, but like it was really just sounded like following whatever Will Smith wanted.
That's what it seems like.
Which is a big bummer.
Now there's a couple of things here that are interesting. So, of course, we can argue all day long about The Village and Lady in the Water. But those are still, let's just skip those and talk about The Happening because that is like unequivocally
the beginning
not
of the
a good
end.
movie. But he writes that, he's got control, he does it. Okay, let's count that as a full-on failure. Sure. But then when he goes to Last Airbender, he's adapting someone else's material. He's not writing it.
Yes,
So
and
I think that's a big
deal.
problem.
Yeah.
For like his creative voice, and he's in a big studio like setting now.
Yeah.
This is not him filming in, I mean, I don't know where he filmed it, but this isn't like we're in Philadelphia and we're filming things like we normally do.
Yeah.
He's in the studio, like big budget production kind of thing.
Yeah. And then if After Earth is true, it's kind of like same
not really his
big
story.
production thing. And he's adapting someone else's vision.
Yeah. I'm assuming probably like a lot of green screen stuff, which it doesn't seem like that's his forte.
Yeah.
So then that's in 2013. So 2015, he directs an episode of Wayward Pines.
Huh? What's that?
I don't really know.
Just a show?
Yeah. And like it kind of gives him the confidence to kind of go back to his roots and go, let me just self-finance a small movie.
Big point. Or
yes. So what he
emphasize.
goes on to do is he takes out a $5 million loan against his estate to self-fund a little found footage horror movie. Now, M. Night, found footage, horror, that's a smart like pairing of ideas. And so he makes The Visit. We talked about it last week. We don't particularly like the movie, but it is in a lot of ways a return to form for a director who's been out for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And
but
it's his idea.
Also, woof.
Yeah.
Bad movie, but I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and
He's trying something, you know. He gets to try something.
And I think it's like it is a bad movie, but it does feel like if you were with friends and you bought tickets to the movie and you have some popcorn and you're just hanging out for the night at the theaters and you see it, I think you're going to have a fun time.
Yeah, I think I just like a younger me. And when I say younger, I don't even mean like stupid young people. Really. It's just, I think that I'm not super into that kind of what that movie was anymore. Because the twist is pretty crazy. Big surprise. And it just didn't really, it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I guess. Like, that is the craziest explanation.
It seems like that more than most of his movies is much more popcorny.
I agree.
I know his movies are like entertaining movies, but there's usually a lot more like subtext and stuff in them. So he does that. And when he's doing that, every studio passes on The Visit. He shows a cut to the movie. This is before it comes out. And every studio's like, no. Then he goes back home and he's like, I just can't figure this out. I'm sure he's very depressed.
Yeah.
And then he goes, I'm going to recut the movie. He recuts it, and then he meets with someone we talked about last October, a guy named Jason Blum, who's kind of like the producer of producers right now in a lot of ways, keeping horror alive and in a lot of ways, independent movies alive.
When we watched Split last night and the Blumhouse title card came up, I said we owe a great debt.
We do.
to this company.
For a reminder for the listeners, Jason Blum takes ideas and takes scripts, and he goes, and his company, by now it's a pretty big company.
Yeah.
But instead of going, okay, we're making Captain Marvel, and this has to make $1 billion for it to be a success, he goes, let's fund, 15 horror movies this year, give them a $5-10 million budget, and if one of those is a hit and makes $200 million, we've made all our money back.
Yeah.
So that is his idea,
great.
and we were talking about how, and other people have said this as well, like I wish there was a comedy Jason Blum out there who would start investing in comedies and just making comedies again.
Yeah.
Because comedies are dead.
Yeah.
Although maybe when we finally watch Barb and Star go to Vista Del Mar, and by now we'll have seen it, maybe that'll be the start of something new. So Jason Blum sees it, and he's like, let's do this. I'm going to release...
Why the cuss not?
The Visit, yeah. And then M. Night says, okay, now I'm ready to make Split. And I'm going to put up my own $9 million to make this movie.
I feel like with The Visit, he was a little rusty.
Yeah, it was like I got to dust off some stuff.
Yeah, and then we have Split, to which, let's just talk about it. So when the trailers were coming out for it,
oh, yes.
I was like, oh, cool, a thriller. What is going on here? James McAvoy looks like he's got split personality. Obviously, they're really pushing that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Kevin has 23 distinct personalities. The 24th is about to appear or something like that. Great tagline.
Yeah. And I think at that point for me, I was like, that's when I was like, oh, yeah, Shyamalan, that guy's not good anymore. So this is not going to be good.
Same with me. I remember watching the trailers and being like, looks dumb.
Yeah, and I think I stupidly, I was like, oh, my tastes have gotten more refined than just your average popcorn thriller. So neither of us saw it in theaters,
which is a huge mistake.
But also,
I'm like, why did I miss this movie?
This is a reason why I'm so glad I don't have Twitter. Because I don't know if this is happening on Twitter. I don't know, but I had no idea what the twist was. Yeah. I had no idea until I saw the movie. Wow. And I saw the movie on when it came out to rent.
I remember us watching this together
at
your parents' house.
We weren't even married yet.
In January of 2018, so a full year after it had been out. That's what I remember. And us being like, okay, that ruled.
Well, yeah, I think we were like, someone we knew saw it, or even a member of my family saw it. Like my dad might have even seen it. Yeah. No, my dad spoils things, though. I don't think it was him. Maybe it was Veronica.
I think we were just talking about M. Night a lot, and I think we just rewatched some stuff.
And all of us,
and we were like, my family were like,
let's just try out this thriller Shyamalan movie. It'll at least probably be entertaining, right? Yeah. Yeah, so we watched it and all pooped our pants.
What's so cool about the movie, too, is... And I was feeling this way when I watched it. I did know about the connection to Unbreakable.
But you didn't know how?
I did, but I couldn't really remember it when we started the movie.
And how did you know?
I knew because, and I still to some degree do this, I would check IMDb news every single day. Yeah. And I was also in a place where I was like, oh yeah, M. Night sucks. I want to hear how bad this movie is. So I was reading articles and everyone's talking about this twist. And I'm like, that sounds really stupid.
Wait, had you seen Unbreakable at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. You still thought it was stupid?
Well, I know. I was being stupid. I know. Don't blame me. I'm already admitting. Because this is one of the coolest twists of all cinema history. Easy. But having said all that, this is the third time I've watched the movie last night. And the twist this time around hit me harder than the other two times I saw the movie. Yeah. This time.
Yeah, we were fist pumping it hard.
And even though I knew it was going to happen, I was like, that is the sign of a really good twist, is when you watch it and you already know it's a twist, it's still impactful. Yeah. And it's very impactful. It's so cool. So, okay. Yes, all of that to say, This movie rules. And thank you for listening to the So, Shyamalan, now he came up with a problem because Universal and Jason Blum, were releasing this movie, but Disney owned the rights to the characters of Unbreakable.
Okay.
So he requested permission to incorporate the character, and he met with Sean Bailey about the use of the character, and they came to a gentleman's agreement, where Bailey agreed to allow the use of the character in the film without a fee, and Shyamalan promised that Disney would be involved in a sequel if it was developed.
Okay.
So basically, he's like, if this works, the next movie, you guys are going to be a part of the producing of it.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that next week.
That's not such a bad deal.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So here's another cool thing. He makes this movie. They have test screenings.
Uh-huh.
And in the test screenings, there was no cafe scene.
Awesome.
So the cafe scene, that premiered when this premiered for critics.
Awesome.
That was the first time anyone saw the Unbreakable twist. Okay? So we have that. Let's see. McAvoy broke his hand while filming when he punched a metal part of a door, missing the soft spot he was supposed to punch.
Oh, ow.
And then here's a couple things that the Hollywood Reporter said about the movie. They consider this to be the first supervillain origin story. That's like, it's just the supervillain.
Sure, yeah.
They also consider it to be the first time a film has been completely devoted to the origins of a villain as opposed to the origins of a superhero.
Yeah.
And it's been described as Hollywood's first ever stealth sequel. The Hollywood Reporter calling it... Oh, no, this is just... So all of that is just what people consider this movie. Then the Hollywood Reporter called it, quote, one of the most shocking surprises in cinematic history.
And then if you do a Google search, you see the last time that's been said was in The Sixth Sense.
Yeah. Well, it's just crazy because he did The Sixth Sense, the most famous twist of all history. But this is this is maybe my favorite twist in a movie.
Oh, yeah.
I think this and Psycho are my favorite twists in a movie.
It's so impactful because of what it means.
Yeah.
Not that it's just wild, but when it happened, it's like, oh, okay, when's the next one happening?
And it's kind of a dream sky scenario. Like if we're sitting there having a cup of coffee and we're just talking about movies and we go, wouldn't it be so cool if someone ever did this, but that'll never happen? That sort of thing. It's kind of like, you remember the movie Life with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds?
Yes.
So that was developed by Sony, who owns the rights to Spider-Man and Spider-Man villains.
Venom.
And the original idea was it ends and that life form is Venom.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't advertise it as Venom or anything like that. And then at I don't know, sometime in post-production, they said no, because they were working on the Venom movie by that point.
That's so lame because...
It would have been so much cooler.
Yeah, the movie is actually pretty scary. I remember I saw that one after it come a while after too, because I think it was just, at that time I was getting burnt out on sci-fis because we had a lot of bad ones. And then, man, I just remember the last scene in the movie when is it Jake who makes it back to Earth?
I think it's Ryan.
Oh, okay, but he's
I might be
screaming
wrong.
at people not to open the thing. And it is so creepy inside how it's already changed him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was been, sinister feeling,
what if it ended and Tom Hardy pulls up on a boat or something?
Yeah.
And then it's maybe the title card says something about Venom or something like that. And then it's what?
Yeah. I think
crazy.
It's Jake.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
The
movie's pretty scary.
Yeah, it's pretty, I feel like it loses its rewatchability almost because it's not a more interesting ending. Maybe I'm wrong. That's a pretty good movie, but it's just hard anytime a movie is Alien in a spacecraft because you always are well, this isn't as good as Alien.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll always rewatch are the press interviews between Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal this movie.
That's true.
I'll rewatch those any old time.
Right now. Do it. Prove it. Okay, so then here's one thing that I did want to go over. Just because, it's good to like movies and know that maybe there's stuff in it that's not represented well, whether it be race, feminism, stuff like that. And in this movie, they're dealing with dissociative identity disorder, which, as you told me yesterday, is kind of, I looked it up.
Okay.
It's kind of like there are a lot of different thoughts in the psychological and mental health community on what's real, what's not, and all that. But there was kind of controversy that you have some psychiatrists and stuff who are just saying how movies like this and Psycho and a lot of times just when mental health is portrayed on screen, it's showing people who are violent or hurting people or it is played for a twist. And so, there's just a lot of people who deal with, they experience intellectual, developmental disabilities and stuff like that, and they're not really represented well on screen. And when they are, they're always the killer.
Yeah.
So this is another movie in a long list of movies that do that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out because it should open a conversation in that way. I still really like the movie despite that, but I think it's good to know that that's
definitely
something.
And I do think with that, like, I find it interesting that in the movie, yes, he's the villain. Yes.
Yeah.
But the psychiatrist, who's a big character, she sees his disability as a potential asset.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that. They could have just labeled him, like because she's the authority, could have just labeled him crazy and had him institutionalized, but she was working so hard so that he wouldn't be. Just interesting. But what you're saying is like totally true, totally happens. It makes me think of Good Time by the Safdie brothers.
Yes.
Because one of the brothers plays a role in the movie as Robert Pattinson's brother. And he experiences a developmental disability.
Yeah.
And it is, I feel like, really well done and very respectful. I mean, the whole movie is just stressful the whole time, and he is put in a bad situation because of his brother.
Yeah.
But it always I always think of like the end of that movie when he's with a group of people who also experience disabilities. And it's like he's finally like put in a situation where he can be accepted and fit in. Yeah. Rather than his brother's reaction to his disability was to protect him from everyone, which he couldn't do.
Yeah.
Like seeing it as a negative thing and keeping him sheltered.
Yeah.
Watch Good Time.
It's just something worth noting. And I do think that this movie, especially when it takes that leap at the end where it's talking about like, it does get into, this is a super villain and we're in a comic book. Personally, just on my own personal like opinion, I feel like that kind of negates some of the arguments that are against this movie. But I would never want to silence a voice that's saying, hey, this is problematic just because I don't have anyone in my life who deals with this or I don't. So I could definitely be wrong in that, and I'd be happy to accept being wrong on that.
Yeah. I think it is worth bringing up.
Yeah, and just for our listeners too, there was a study that researchers found that only 3% of people who have DID were charged with an offense. 1.8% were fined, and less than 1% were in jail. So there's no reason to be scared of someone. So anyway, music is by Wes Dillon Thordson.
Great job.
He did Foxcatcher.
Great job. Love the theme that he did for this movie, especially I think it really comes into play when Anya Taylor-Joy is pointing the gun at him and he realizes that she is pure. The music at that part makes me want to cry.
Crazy.
It's so good.
Yeah, and he'll go on to do Glass as well.
Great, cool.
The cinematographer is Mike Jolicki's, and he is a newbie.
Cool.
So he had done he's done like some documentaries and stuff like that, but before this, he pretty much had done the horror movie It Follows.
Yeah.
And M. Night saw that movie.
I still have never seen that.
I haven't either.
Heard it's really good.
M. Night saw that movie and he said, I gotta have, I wanna try this out. And he's going, this is a risk because this guy is not seasoned. And that pays off.
Oh, yeah. Looks great.
He also goes on to do Glass and Us, Jordan Peele's Us.
Cool.
Which is also a great-looking movie.
Yes.
The movie, it's wide release, so it comes out in festivals in 2016, but its wide release is January 20th, 2017. It makes $138 million domestically and $278 worldwide on a $9 million budget. That's a smashing success if there ever was one, and that's the notes I have on Split.
Okay, so in terms of actors, I'm going to start with the psychiatrist Dr. Karen Fletcher, played by Betty Buckley. She is in The Happening.
Oh, yep, I remember her. She's like the old woman in the house.
She's also in Carrie, the OG, Miss Collins.
So she must be a teacher.
I wonder if she's the
gym teacher.
The gym teacher. I wonder. Yeah,
okay.
I don't remember the character's name. But, she's in Frantic, The Film Crew, Supergirl, Preacher, Chicago Med, Getting On, Pretty Little Liars. Right? Yeah. A lot of TV. Very great career.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the gym teacher. Is that the gym teacher?
Oh, that's totally her.
Cool.
Yeah.
Much younger in that movie.
Well, yeah. And then Jessica Sula plays Marcia. Or Marcia? Marcia. They're calling her Marcia. Yeah. Sorry. She is in The Lovers, Skins, Love and Marriage, Panic, Big Fork. I feel like she's still at the beginning of her career. I mean,
all the girls are.
Yeah, definitely. Like her first acting credit is 2017. This movie. Okay, I get it. Oh no, Skins would be the first probably. And then Haley Lou Richardson plays Claire. She is in 5 Feet Apart, Columbus, The Edge of 17, Unpregnant, Operation Finale, and some TV. And then Anya Taylor-Joy,
talking about a big one,
plays
finally
Casey. Let me see something really quick.
So, are you wondering about the witch thing?
Yeah,
because I looked it all up.
Okay.
So in 2015, they would have shot The Witch, and it came out wide in, I think, February of 2016. And the movie makes in like the $50 million range. So that would have kind of put her on the radar. But then this movie comes out in 16/wide 2017. So I think it's safe to say this is her breakout role with making $250 million. This is where people see her from. But then you look back and you're like, oh, she's also in this indie hit, The Witch. Yeah. That's like her foundation. Yeah. And this is like, oh, we're putting up the rafters on the house and stuff.
Well, I think it was nice with The Witch coming out first because, yeah, it is an indie horror movie, but it did have a lot of stuff surrounding it. And I think because like the trailer alone freaked a lot of people out. And I think a lot of people didn't even see the movie because it looked really, really demonic and crazy.
I was one of those people.
Same.
And then I watched it like last year and I was like, oh, this is a really good horror movie. I can handle this.
Yeah, it's good. And she's great in it. But yeah, the Split is definitely what put her on the map.
Yeah.
And what has further put her on the map is The Queen's Gambit, which she just won a Golden Globe for. Right? Golden Globe?
Yeah, now she's officially an indie darling.
Yes. She's also was recently in Emma, Peaky Blinders.
Is she in the X-Men? I can't remember. I feel like she was in one of the X-Men movies.
No?
Good for her.
She's escaped. This is the superhero thing she's doing. Not Marvel.
Cool.
Not DC. M. Night.
Cool.
Oh no. She's in the New Mutants.
A long-delayed movie that finally came out in the pandemic and did okay for a movie that's been shelved for like 3 or 4 years.
Are we going to watch it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I guess if we cover X-Men, we'll have to watch it.
It just sucks because I remember when it was coming out or whatever, like before they originally moved the date for the first time. It's like, cool, a superhero horror movie on
cool.
Like source material that people are familiar with. That sounds interesting. It's got some really big actors, like young actors in it. But then, it just kept getting moved and it's like, well, surely I'm not seeing this now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty interested though.
Like I said, I do want to cover X-Men, but there are so many movies, and we're going to have to add another person to our He Who Shall Not Be Named list when we get there. So it's kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
And I actually I only like 2 of the movies. So it's kind of tough for me to want to watch a series where I only like probably a max of 4 or 5 if I'm lucky.
Yeah. Next.
Shut up. Next
is...
Did you talk about McAvoy?
Shut up. James McAvoy, or McAvoy, however you say
It's
it.
McAvoy.
Is it really, though?
It's McAvoy,
Okay.
Yeah. Probably.
Okay. He is in Filth, Atonement, His Dark Materials, Sandman. Oh, he plays Lord Morpheus in this version. Yes, I do remember that. Is this
about the Neil Gaiman?
Yes,
comic
this is
book?
Audible. They like, I think what was this, 2020? They recently Audible did like a special Sandman thing. Like a cast read the Sandman.
And that's in IMDb. They put audiobooks in IMDb now?
I guess.
It's not a show or a movie. Jordan, you can't steer me wrong on this.
Well, how do you find that? Oh, it is on TV, but I do know that this is also Audible.
Okay.
I don't know where this premiered, though.
Let me add
He would be such... I mean, I've never read it, but I just imagine that he's such a good casting for that.
Oh, so here's the problem. Wait, this is not out.
Oh, well, I've heard stuff about it then.
So
maybe it's because of my job.
It's 20... Well, wait a second. Is it out? No, it is out. Not to be confused with the 2021 adaptation of Netflix. Huh. It is out. It's TV mature. This is one thing that I wish that they would add to IMDb is they would put what network things are played on.
I know.
I don't understand why they don't do that. Because I'm even looking at the thing and it just says DC. Only from Audible. Jordan was right.
Why does it have a TVMA rating, though? Is it because they released a trailer about...
It must be.
That's the only thing I can think of. This is so boring. Okay, he's also in It Chapter 2. He's in X-Men, unfortunately. He is... Yeah, and then he's also in Watership Down, which came out... I don't know. It's James McAvoy. Oh, Penelope. That's what I wanted to talk about. That was when I discovered James McAvoy was the movie Penelope, starring Christina Ricci. Is that the girl? Let's look it up because that's important to me.
Well, something I want to say about McAvoy. I love McAvoy. There's 2 actors that I just like love so much, and it's James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, who are both in X-Men, and I just wish that they had careers that I enjoyed watching their movies more. Because this is like the James McAvoy performance. I mean, he's always good, but this is like the only thing that I really like of the things I've seen of his. Like unequivocally.
Well, listen to the cast list for Penelope.
Same with Michael Fassbender. There's only like one movie of his that I like.
Well, apparently James McAvoy is going to be on Great British Bake Off at some point, so
and
you can add that to your
we
list.
Can go.
Penelope was a movie that my sister and I rented often and watched often. We loved it so much. We also had big, huge, fat crushes on James McAvoy for this movie. This is a crazy cast. You have Christina Ricci, Reese Witherspoon, Richard E. Grant, Catherine O'Hara.
Wow.
Who else was it? Peter Dinklage. That's James McAvoy.
I think we've covered everybody, right?
Main players.
They cut. I was watching the deleted scenes today, and they had Sterling K. Brown as an entire character that was cut from this movie, and he is awesome. And
he's in American Crime Story,
Black Panther,
the OJ season.
Yeah, and he's also I think he's Killmonger's dad in the flashback scenes in L.A. and Black Panther. So
yes.
He's always a delight, and it was fun watching the deleted scenes with him. Makes total sense that they cut those scenes, though.
Yes.
Hey, it's Micah cutting in to tell you that on April 30th, I am coming out with a new music release. It's new-ish. I'm re-releasing Adam, Eve, Abel, and Cain into one release called The First Family. The reason I'm doing this is because I recorded new tracks and I got new mixes for Adam, Eve, and Abel, and so I thought I'd put it all together. I'm celebrating it by doing a release show on YouTube on the same day. That's on my YouTube channel, and that is going to premiere at 7 p.m. So April 30th, get on it, head over to whatever service you use, listen to The First Family, send me texts, send me emails, Instagram, whatever, let me know what you think, and then go to my show that's premiering on YouTube at 7 p.m. And then also after that, there is going to be an 8 p.m. After show for patrons only, where they can request any of my songs to play, and I will play them. I probably can't pull off Roy G. Biv, though, if you're thinking of that one. So join in the fun. Now back to whatever movie we're covering. So the movie begins, and we see Anya Taylor-Joy, and we're getting a nice, subtle Jaws shot where they're dollying in on her, but they're keeping her in focus while they're also with a zoom lens. So it's causing the perspective to change, and you're already like, she's out of place in this world. Right off the bat. Thrown right in there. Yeah, that's seriously how it feels. I mean, when we did sit down to watch this the first time, I was kind of like, that's how they're kicking this off? They're doing this in scene 1?
So she's at what looks like some kind of birthday party.
Yeah.
She is on one end of the table. All of the girls are on the other end with, I'm assuming, Claire, the birthday girl.
Yeah.
Clearly, all the other girls are friends, and Anya was a pity invite. And
they even say that in the next shot, basically.
Very, very nice doling out information in this movie, for sure, whether it's a flashback or it is just dialogue.
You have a lot that you have to get out. There's a lot to set up this concept.
So, yeah, so she's trying to get her ride when Claire and Marcia are with Claire's dad, and I love the guy who plays the dad. He's just such he's such like a good dad. He seems like, and that's when Claire reveals that you can't invite everyone from your art class and not one person, and leave out the one outcast. Pretty much, you have to invite her too. And then she also mentions how she breaks out a lot and talks back to teachers and stuff. And it's like, why though? So Dad offers to drive her home. And they go to the car.
And the perspective is just great. Already it's like, it does truly feel like this first scene is M. Night's back, because it just feels like a thriller.
Yes.
But it has a totally different vibe. Like, it feels like there's a specific person behind the camera. This isn't just a run-of-your-mill thriller.
No, he is in control.
Like, it is from the perspective of Dennis.
Sure.
Because it's this personality, I would assume. And it's coming in, and the dad looks at him as he's coming to the car, and he says, can I help you? And then it goes to
Anya.
What's her character name?
Casey.
It goes to Casey. She's in the front seat, and her friends are in the back, like on Instagram
They're not her
or whatever.
Friends, Micah. That's
Come on.
So clear. But yeah, I love that part where she is just sitting quietly, so annoyed with the girls in the back, because they're just on some social media thing, talking about boys, being super giggly and super loud, and not including her, not even trying to include her at this point. It's like, party's over. She invited her. That's enough. She did her nice thing. They don't need to acknowledge her presence. I will say too, a lot of the times for thriller movies, especially in kidnap situations or whatever, I know that people are always going into it with, what would I do in this situation?
Yeah.
The whole time. And a lot of the times you hear people say like, well, I would never do this. I would never do that. The biggest cardinal sin is don't run upstairs.
Yeah.
In a house.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I feel like in this movie, what everyone does makes sense to me.
It does to me.
And especially... Sorry.
Oh, no, it's just because that logic only takes you so far.
Yes.
Because if I hear something in our house or something, I don't want to believe that it's an intruder. So my brain is already in self-defense mode.
Absolutely.
In that I'm not running to grab a weapon or something. I'm like, let me just go look at it over. I'm sure it's nothing. So when I see that in movies...
And then you get stabbed.
Yeah, when I see that in movies and characters act that way, I go, that's actually more realistic than if they're like, okay, let me grab my machine gun and walk out to the living room. But this movie strikes a really nice balance.
Yeah, I think most of the time... when people are saying that, I just always think but you're not in the situation. You have the advantage of seeing everything as a fly on the wall, and you get to calculate what you would do. You don't know if you would do that. You probably would run up the stairs.
Yeah.
I would probably run up the stairs. Anya's reaction was very slowly, because, no one's noticing her. Maybe if she can slowly open the car door,
Well, and
she'll
it's
get
so
out.
cool because so he gets in the car and the girls are in the backseat. They don't even notice.
Oh, it's so good.
And then he turns the car on and this like country song is playing.
Uh-huh.
And the sound editing in this movie, much like Unbreakable, is really top notch and mixing and just the sound in general. And the world sounds go away and it's like this muffled sound of the song, but played at a slower rate. And you're like,
I didn't even notice that.
Oh yeah, you're just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And it's, and the girls are like, I think you're in the wrong car, sir.
Yeah.
Which is also another reaction where you're in broad daylight. You've just
surely
had like
no
a fun
one's
day.
Carjacking a car with 3 girls inside.
You assume the best out of people in a lot of situations. And then, so that sound, and it's kind of growing, that low sound of this country song kind of circulating through. And then when she opens the door, that sound immediately cuts out and it goes, bang, 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 because the door's open and there's a key in the car. And then Kevin looks at her.
This is after he incapacitated the other girls in the backseat.
And puts on his mask and sprays her. And then it just says, split. And then it's showing this great montage, and he does something kind of like that. Like this and Signs are probably my favorite of his title cards that he has in movies.
Okay, I don't remember Signs.
Signs is just cool because it's very much like Psycho. It doesn't have any footage, but the way the credits are moving and stuff is very like, oh, we're in for a ride.
Oh, okay.
And the score is just going crazy. But the score's going, and it'll say split, and then
Oh, I love the title cards.
Multiplies a bunch, and then it shows him taking them into a hallway, and then it shows an M. Night Shyamalan film, and then it, it's going through all this stuff, and you're already like, what is this movie? This is so cool.
Yes.
It not only feels, it feels like, oh, this is a new thriller, but it also feels like it's hearkening back to, again, Hitchcock. It feels very Hitchcockian, and like, this is old school, but it's my twist on old school.
Yeah.
So I love all of that. Then right away, we're with the girls, and they're in this weird basement-y area. That's what you're assuming at first.
Yes. I mean, anyone would assume, oh, we're in this guy's creepy basement.
Yeah.
That you can see has been built in such a way. Like, there's nothing creepier in an abduction movie when you are in the place where you're taken to the place where he wants you to be. And you are recognizing that he has set it up completely himself and he has complete control.
Yeah, not good.
That's the worst thing to realize.
Just a very clean room with nothing to really use.
And a really heavy door that's locked. And then they learn very soon after that, another door after that door that's also locked.
Yeah. And so in this scene, Claire's saying, I used to take martial arts. We need to just rush this guy so we can get out of here. That seems like a smart plan.
Yeah.
To me.
And it's also like I gotta say too, it is important to note, at no point do I think that any of the girls are acting like they're just screaming and panicking.
No.
They're panicking for sure. But we have so much in the thriller and horror genre of girls screaming and being hysterical
and helpless.
The damsel in distress. All of them are in complete survival mode.
Yeah,
and they're all written very well.
They're all really smart, and the only reason they don't succeed is because he's smarter, if that makes sense.
And stronger, which is what Casey says.
Rather than like in a lot of movies how, characters are dumb, and that's why the character can do things to these people.
Yeah, and I think sometimes in movies when someone is shown hysterical, it's like, yeah, I would probably be hysterical too. Yeah. But like how their room is set up, their situation is set up, they're like given time to really assess the situation and trying to figure out a way out of it.
And I do kind of see that, M. Night's a father now, and you can see that he's writing them as if he's saying, I would hope, I don't know. I know he has kids. I don't know if he has girls. I'm assuming he does because of this movie, but I feel like there's him going, I would hope that my daughters would be smart enough to do these things. Yeah. I think there is, weirdly enough, I think there's a bit of a father perspective on this movie. Yeah. In like the hopes of these people succeeding. Yeah. And these girls getting out of here alive.
I mean, yeah, all of them, yes, they're all surviving, but there is only one survivor in the room, which is Casey.
Yeah.
Because throughout the movie, there are flashbacks to her as a very young child hunting with her dad and her uncle. And throughout the movie, you discover that, she has been abused
by her uncle.
pretty much her whole life.
So you're just jumping
well,
right
I guess
through
I'll just get to it because I know we'll forget the flashbacks throughout the movie.
Oh, I have them all written down.
Okay, well, you learn, like, they show flashback around this time in the movie, the first one.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, throughout the movie, you find out that she's a survivor. Because at the beginning of this, they're like, we need to fight him. We need to do something physical and hurt him. The best thing you can do is hurt someone to get them to focus on the pain.
Uh-huh.
And Casey says, I saw him lift you on that bed like you weighed nothing.
Yeah.
He would hurt us more.
And I think all of that stuff, like her perspective on the situation, I think the first time you watch the movie, and this is intentional, I think at least for me, you kind of feel like she really knows what's going on. Like, how does she know all this stuff? Like, what is she, Sherlock Holmes?
I also feel like she's kind of giving up. Because
let me finish my thought. So she's she feels like she's just really smart and gets everything throughout the whole movie. But then when you find out that she's a victim of all this sexual abuse, you go like, oh, she's been in situations like this. That's why she knows all this stuff. That's why when her friend gets taken out of the room, she grabs her and she says, "Pee on yourself." Uh-huh. Like, she knows this stuff firsthand. And then when you watch it on multiple viewings, you kind of are like, oh, this is experience.
Yeah.
She's not Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, and I guess I wouldn't actually say give up. She is just sitting there and she's kind of shooting down any ideas that they have. And I think it's because she does not have enough information yet. Because she does say shortly after, like, I'll let you guys know when I've basically figured something out.
Yeah. And Claire in that scene, she says, why do you pretend like you're not one of us?
Yeah.
And that pays off later when you find out she isn't one of them.
Yeah.
They have not had to go through what she's gone through. Thus, they are not pure, as she is pure.
Yeah.
By the ideology of the Horde.
Yes.
So, yeah, we have those flashbacks. And so in this movie, now in Unbreakable, we talked a lot about colors. So I want to talk about colors. So David Dunn wears green, and green's really important. So in this movie, the psychiatrist wears a green scarf in almost every single scene. And she's the one who's trying to save them. Is that intentional? Yeah, that's intentional. Then this whole movie's really yellow, and it's not like explicitly said, but after watching Glass, you're like, yeah, yellow.
His color's yellow.
Yeah, that's his like alter
That's
ego.
Kevin's color.
Yeah, so that's really cool. I love all of that. I also saw pointed out online, which I didn't catch, when he gets on the train, he has to like step over the color yellow, so it's like he becomes.
Oh man, that's so cool.
They
really thought of everything.
But what I pose as a question is the colors are very intentional. When we first see in her flashbacks, actually throughout her flashbacks.
You know what? I gotta look up a still because I just never saw it.
Okay, but they do get muted after the assault a little bit. But they are green. So the uncle is wearing green, which is the hero's color, and the dad is wearing yellow, which is the villain's color. And I was wondering if we could try and solve that riddle, because I also think...
he is wearing green. You're right.
Yeah, I think that has to be intentional.
And this is what I think it is.
Okay.
At this, so in those the earliest flashbacks that we get in the movie, she is laughing at her uncle. She thinks he's funny. Mm-hmm. I think that he is shown as someone that she just looks up to and admires and likes. Her dad, I'm not really sure for a while until he does die, and I think like as for her, she might blame her dad for dying, whether it's conscious or unconscious. Because what he left her with, which was her uncle who has abused her whole life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Well, but I just can't figure out the green of the uncle. I know you just said what you said, but also in the scene where he is in his underwear and he's like, let's pretend like we're animals. He says, he implies that this is not the first time that they have done this.
I know, yeah.
So it makes me wonder, I can't figure out, and I tried to Google if there were some ideas and I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
My thought would be that maybe as the omniscient viewer of the movie, we are seeing someone who is supposed to be a heroic figure and then betrays that color to us, the viewer, along with her.
Yeah.
That would be my only thought.
I don't even know if I would necessarily say yellow because it is Kevin's color means bad. I mean, it's like simple because he is the bad guy of the movie.
Uh-huh.
But she's an empath. Then that's established much more in Glass.
Uh-huh.
So she understands him. So maybe like her dad wearing yellow doesn't necessarily mean like it's a bad thing.
And maybe that is part of her connection to Kevin, because that's explored more in the next movie, how she has like
her dad is like she has trauma from losing her dad.
Oh, cool, Jordan.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm
that
going
could
with
be
that.
A reach.
I don't think that's a reach. I wish there was something satisfying with the uncle, because I do feel like green is the color of the hero and good. But maybe it's just the color of perceived good, and that good has to earn itself, and he does not earn his good.
Yeah.
He
is manipulating her.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting. All of that stuff with her uncle, it's like when I watch the movie, I'm always like, oh yeah, this is like intense.
Yeah, it is.
Because this is much like almost all of his movies. You go, oh yeah, this is PG-13?
Yeah.
And it just seems, this movie, especially the final act of this movie, seems really kind of gruesome, but it isn't. He's just so good at that.
He uses the power of suggestion in like all of his movies.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, most of his movies. But yeah.
I mean, all my life growing up, I thought that Sixth Sense and Signs were rated R.
Yeah.
And I think I thought Unbreakable was too. And I watched the movies, and I think I still thought they were rated R. And then I looked them up today, and they're PG-13. What?
Yeah, well, I think as a kid, too, with Sixth Sense, I thought that, because he sees dead people like, oh, they're ghouls and gross and creepy. And not a lot of them aren't, besides one that I bring up a lot, and you never remember.
Yeah, I'm
sorry. Which is one of the scariest parts of that movie. Anyway.
So now Barry, one of Kevin's personalities, goes to the psychiatrist. And this is when we learn a little bit more about how... It's hard to talk about like specific scenes because there's so many elements of the movie, But basically, Kevin has all these different distinct personalities, and some of them are reaching out, trying to grab the light, as they call it, to let someone in the world know that there are girls being held hostage in his basement.
Yeah.
But then there's the two, Dennis and Patricia, that share the light and are very much... they have this ideology about how they need to eat the impure and the beast will come. This beast, this horde, who we find out is his superhero or supervillain. Cool. So he goes to the psychiatrist and they talk for a while.
Well, she's trying to figure out why he wanted to meet with her, but you can tell that she's really paying attention to every move that he's making because he's kind of straightening things up in her apartment. But she doesn't say anything then about anything.
No.
She just wants to know, like, why is he here? And he just keeps saying, like, oh, I just had an episode. Like, I'm fine now. I don't even know why I emailed you, So that ends up pretty... well, I do like where he is asking her, like, how old are you? Like, how much longer are you going to be around?
Yeah.
And it is established early on that she's really fighting for him. She really wants the world to understand people with DID are special, and she doesn't want him to be institutionalized. This has really become her life's work.
Yeah. And it's so crazy watching the movie now because when you don't know that this movie connects to Unbreakable, I think he is again doing the Stephen King-y thing where he's taking some reality and then warping it enough that he can make this kind of fantastical story.
Yeah.
And all of her thoughts on DID and how a patient could have diabetes, one of their personalities, and the other one couldn't. So what if one thought they were stronger than the others? Setting all this stuff up that he sets up really nicely. But I think outside of if this movie was just alone by itself, I don't think it would be as good. All of these things just are so out there. And when you watch it after knowing it's unbreakable, it seems so much more believable and it's so much more investing. Because, she goes over to her neighbor's house and she's talking about her patients, and her neighbor's kind of saying like, "Oh, I don't believe that is real." And she's saying, "Well, what if these people who experience these things are more than us?" And when you watch it the first time, you're kind of like, hammy much? You watch it this time and you're like, she's setting up heroes.
Yeah.
And you just go, this is cool.
Right.
So all of that stuff is really
crazy?
cool on a second and third viewing.
Yeah, wouldn't it be crazy if in this movie, like, okay, let's just for fun think that this is taking place at the same time as Unbreakable.
Yeah.
And she's his Dennis Kevin's psychiatrist. And she has this thesis, like maybe there's something supernatural going on here because they're accessing basically the full capacity of a human brain, which we only access like 10% of it.
At a time.
Okay, at a time. But this for some reason, because no one's really believing her, she ends up at a comic book store. Or she goes,
she meets
she's
Elijah.
a little upper class. So maybe she ends up at limited edition.
Yeah.
And she starts talking to Mr. Glass about all of this.
Well, maybe, because if you remember, his original script of Unbreakable / idea was that the movie Unbreakable was Act 1 and Act 2 would be setting up Kevin.
Yes.
So maybe that would have been what would have been that movie.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
She's just so like one step away from entering a comic book store with what she's talking about.
Yeah. And maybe one of the reasons he does that is to hide the twist.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe that's why he doesn't want to do something like that.
Yeah.
So then Patricia walks in to see the girls. And this is one of Kevin's personalities. And she's a British prim and proper woman.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's surprised that there are 3 girls there.
Yeah. And the girls are very confused. Mm-hmm. They do some great acting because how scary and confusing would that be?
So that's the moment they find out that he has DID.
They're not sure because when Hedwig comes in a little later, they're like, "What? This is confusing enough."
No, but I know. But don't you think like if you were held hostage by a man who kidnapped you, and then he comes to you as a different personality, and then again as another personality, wouldn't it be like, oh my gosh, what was going to happen to me?
Definitely.
Because of this thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I like how they set that up too, because you're hearing these voices. Mm-hmm. And they're like, help us, because they're hearing a woman's British voice. And then he walks in.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon we have Hedwig, which provides the comic relief of the movie.
Yeah.
And
great acting.
This is one of those things where it's overlooked, but it's kind of a miracle that you can watch this movie, still be scared and freaked out, and the actor is also doing this, an imitation of a 9-year-old boy who kind of has a crush on one of the girls.
Mm-hmm. With a lisp. That's
kind of a miracle. I mean, James McAvoy's performance in this is really insane.
It is.
It is like, no, not everyone could have done this.
No, I don't think so.
Not by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
And since he is a supervillain, we could compare him to other supervillains, and I'd probably put him in my top 10 that's been portrayed on film.
Sure, me too.
Right up there with Otto Octavius and Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin.
Would it be Alfred Molina? Is he the only iteration of that? Octavius? Okay.
Supposedly signed on to be in Spider-Man No Way Home. We'll find out this December unless they move the release date, which I'm sure they will. She tells them, Patricia, that the beast is coming for them. And she says, like you said, that Dennis followed 2 girls.
Yeah.
Which I think really comes together when you find out, like, he would have been stalking them and understanding that they have an easy life. Because if he'd been following Anya...
I think they're the girls who did the thing to him.
That's right. They are.
Yeah. That's his motive for this. Which, like, what's interesting about that is I feel like for a lot of the movie, you're hearing stuff about this horde, this beast thing, but then you find out that, like, these girls did something really mean to him, and you're like, oh, this whole beast thing is just him coping with. It's giving him the motivation and justifying why he needs to punish these girls. There's no beast. Yeah. It's just is like, this is justifying his actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that even further is like, okay, so there is no supernatural stuff in this movie. You know?
Yeah. And it is crazy because you find out he's in a zoo. And that's another payoff because you're just seeing like bars everywhere. And as you go, it's like there's lockers. What is this place? And then when you find out it's a zoo, you go, oh, okay.
Right.
And it's the beast that lives in a zoo. That's fun. That's also very comic booky. So another thing they do around the scene is the girls are trying to break out and they find that there's like a vent above them. And so they're breaking all this plaster on the walls. Mm-hmm. And Hedwig is trying to come in and stop them, but he's not strong enough to push the door open. And then Dennis takes the light and he pushes it open like no problem. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's just great visual. These are different personalities and they have different strengths.
Because like going forward at one point when Fletcher is giving her symposium speech at this,
which is the next scene, that's great.
Yeah, she is talking about a patient who is blind, but because of DID, 3 of her personalities developed sight. Like her eyes regenerated, whatever that is. Like, and
they're optical nerves.
3 of the people. So it's like genetic. Sorry, these personalities. What did she say? She just said it so well. I don't know, but like, the genetic makeup changes for each personality.
Yeah, and she's also saying like maybe this is what we consider the supernatural.
Yes.
So again, kind of bringing it into a real world context for us.
Yes. You'll get me with that every time.
We're also going to have around this scene, she's suspicious that Barry, who keeps visiting her, man, if someone hasn't seen this movie and they're listening, they got to be like, how many characters are in this? And very confused. But Barry keeps visiting her. She's suspicious that it's Dennis really pretending he's Barry. Or it's them sharing it. And around this time, let me look at my notes again. This is when we have M. Night's cameo.
Okay.
And
so this is when Barry just left her office the second time.
Yeah. And what I wanted to talk about this, and I think you're going to like heartily disagree with me on this, but the one like knock against M. Night's writing I have is there are some times. And like this scene is one of them. So he has these.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Okay, he has these buffalo wings from Hooters, and the psychiatrist does this like jokey speech thing where she said, "What are these cholesterol-inducing nuclear things you put in a microwave?"
She says it in such a smarmy, high-class way. Yeah.
That are a pale imitation of meat or something like that, and he's like, "They're chicken wings." And he does have a tendency to try to do like this jokey, intelligent, almost Quentin Tarantino monologue humor in his movies.
This is not what I thought you were going to say.
And I just think that it usually doesn't work.
Okay.
It is kind of a funny scene, but you're kind of like, oh, brother, dude. Like, we get it. You grabbed a thesaurus so you could write this scene.
I do disagree with you. I liked it. What I thought you were going to say is that during this scene, so he is the security officer or security guard for this apartment building. Uh-huh. So he has all of the surveillance footage, and she wants to see what just happened in front of the building because her patient just left. And there's trash on the ground, and he walks right through it, which she's suspecting this is Dennis the whole time, and she knows that Dennis experiences OCD. Walks right through it, so it can't be Dennis, but she's still not sure.
Well, she's saying because he walked right through it, a normal person would walk through it. So if it is this character who has OCD and he's pretending like he is it's kind of a convoluted way of saying because he walked through it, it doesn't make sense that he is Barry.
Sure.
That's what she's saying.
What I don't appreciate in movies is when that happens, M. Night, his character says, "Oh, he walked right through it. Any other normal person would have just walked around."
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we know, we get it.
Yeah.
This movie, we're a little bit smarter than that. But I mean, that happens sometimes in movies. It's just always just kind of cringy for me.
But I just wanted to point that out. I think it's kind of cute a little bit, like that he tries to flex his like, I can do
because she's the psychiatrist,
goofy
like really
monologue
renowned.
things, but they usually don't work. And I think that's like my one complaint about Glass is I feel like there's a lot of characters who kind of have like jokey stuff or things that just feel like he's a little out of touch with what this kind of person would really talk like, you know?
Well, who in Unbreakable?
No, Glass. Sorry.
Oh, Glass. Oh, I don't quite remember because I feel like in Unbreakable, all the extras were really great.
Yeah. If I'm remembering right, I feel like Joseph, like a lot of his dialogue's a little like, okay, we get it, eye roll.
Oh, I
like,
just don't remember that. And I feel like the old lady, her name, Fletcher's neighbor, who's watching Wheel of Fortune, she's perfect. Yeah, I love her character.
But sometimes, yeah, he just tries to put in these touches and they don't necessarily work, but it doesn't ruin the movie by any means.
No, I think it makes it endearing, really.
Yeah.
Because even if it's a little irritating, that's what's a little endearing about it.
Yeah. But yeah, she says something about like,
I know.
Hooters is like if Henry V owned a fast food chain, and they're like, that's funny, but leave that in a Tarantino movie. Don't bring it into Split.
Okay, so the girls are eating, but they are taken to the kitchen by Patricia. And earlier in the movie, I think it was during the symposium presentation, someone asked Fletcher, can two personalities share the spotlight at one time?
Yeah.
And she said yes. And we are shown that in the scene. So she's made the girls sandwiches. They're eating at the table. Patricia's talking about lions. And then she has a little fit because she doesn't cut the sandwich straight enough. To which, so that just means that proves that Dennis and Patricia are sharing the spotlight.
Yeah.
I like
Which
that.
I have never caught until you mentioned it.
At first I was like, oh, it is Dennis the whole time, besides Hedwig. But like the whole time, but it's like, no, we just, like literally, I think in the last scene we're talking about the 2 and 1. So. Yeah.
And so then Marcia attempts an escape and fails at her escape and is put in a separate room. So they're all in 3 separate rooms.
Which is no good if you're trying to survive.
Yeah. And then Hedwig visits Casey. Almost said Clarice. That's a different series. Similar vibes. And he says something about how he likes to dance.
He likes Kanye.
That's his main man. And he likes the window above his CD player. Or he has a window above his CD player. And she goes, can you show it to me? Eventually, he shows it. He dances. Another scene that's like, I mean, you got to really nail this as like everybody on board, or else people are leaving the theater laughing at you.
Anya her acting is just so consistently.
She ties it together.
Incredible, yeah. And this scene when he's doing that, she's just crying, like, or holding back tears because she is full on panicking because she's looking around the room and she's like, "Where's the window? I don't care about him dancing. Where is the window? There is no window. It's a drawing.
A window." And
so she's freaking out. But she's trying not to because she doesn't want Hedwig to change because maybe she's trying to get him to run away with her, you know?
Yeah.
She continues to be very smart, even though she's panicking. And Hedwig shows her this walkie-talkie radio thing. Yeah. And at first she thinks it's a toy. It's not. It's real. And she starts talking to whoever is out there, says her name, says she's being held hostage with 2 other girls. Please find help. If you're listening to this, you must be close. And it's this guy on the other end who thinks that she is pranking him.
And so what I think is awesome about this is it's another thing where when you watch it a second time, it makes more sense.
Yes.
Because, I don't know, I feel like if I got that message, I would at least follow it up with like calling the police or something.
Well, no, I think what it shows is what you are supposed to feel as a viewer is there is no hope.
Yes, but I think when I watched it, I'm going like, oh, this is that trope in movies where someone calls for help and the person doesn't help them because they think it's a prank. And I don't necessarily like that.
Okay.
What I think works about it when you watch it a second time is, so the last thing he says to her is, how are you on this line? And that's the key for me that makes it work, because you find out they're at a zoo and this is a self-contained walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
So it does make sense that he's getting this walkie-talkie probably in the middle of the night or something as a security guard of the zoo, being like, who is pranking me? It's one of like 5 coworkers that I have.
Okay.
So that is like, oh, he took that trope I don't necessarily like unless it's done perfectly, and he fixed it. But when the first time I'm watching it, I'm like, come on, like, call the police. It feels like a running up the stairs moment. but it's not.
Well, what's so interesting about that, like, it always makes me wonder, like, would I call the police?
Yeah.
If I got something like that over a radio at my work or something like that, like, would I?
And I think you would.
I would like to think that I would.
I think most people would because it's so crazy. But because
do you know how many times though people get prank calls and they're not prank calls, someone is dying? That happens. That happens.
I don't know. I'm just saying it's a trope that I don't necessarily like, but I think the movie pulls it off because it's a self-contained walkie-talkie.
Okay.
Like if she was just on a line.
Agree to disagree. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But then now we're plugging right along, just as the movie does. Dr. Fletcher goes to Kevin's house, which is at the zoo.
Because Barry has emailed her like a million times.
Yeah. And again, you're seeing like bars outside of the house, and it's like, what is this place? Because you don't know it's a zoo yet. And I feel like it can't be overstated how cool the idea is that he lives in a zoo. Because I'm just thinking he owns a mansion or something like that. Like I'm expecting it to pan out, and it's basically the Psycho house or something.
Yeah.
But it's not. And so she's there, and she's trying to just figure out what's going on. She knows something is wrong. She eventually...
Well, what is she thinking when she shows up at the zoo?
I think she knows he lives there.
Okay. But how is that okay? How is that allowed?
I don't know, and that's
what
something
lie has
I
he
don't
told
wanna...
her to potentially make her think that a person just lives at the zoo?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not like a nitpick thing. I don't have an issue with it. I'm just purely curious why someone doesn't question that.
I think you could also maybe assume that maybe one of the emails said that that's where they live.
True.
And she's just... Because the whole time she's like, wow, you have this really interesting philosophy about the beast. That's interesting. She knows that these are inherently bad things.
True.
But she's like, I can't let this guy snap because this could be really dangerous.
She is suspecting that he's going to potentially become violent.
So maybe she's just like, yeah, you live at the zoo. Yeah, that's normal and fine.
Yeah.
And then she discovers one of the girls, and she does her best to confront Kevin and say, this is wrong. You know this is wrong. And he says, I'm sorry you feel that way.
What sucks about it, too, is right before she discovers Claire, she is talking to Dennis. And remember, she just met Dennis.
Yeah.
Like a couple scenes ago. And because she called him on it. Like, this is Dennis. And he conceded, it's me, Dennis. And when she's talking to him at his place, they are talking about the beast. And he she really, truly convinces him, because she genuinely means it, that she is fighting for him and she wants to believe him. And he really takes her at her word. And you're like, cool. Now just play it cool, lady.
Yeah.
And she still is very suspicious because she puts her handkerchief in a door jamb.
Yeah, why did she do that? I didn't figure that out.
In case she needed to get out and she couldn't. I think it was just security. Maybe that's the door they entered from, and she was afraid he would lock her in because she's still suspicious of him.
Well, what does that do? I just don't understand why she...
all the way.
Okay. Got it.
That's why Casey was able to get out, because the handkerchief was in there. Because it never closed all the way.
I just didn't get the mechanics of that.
Oh, okay.
Simple as that.
Finds Claire. Bad for her, bad for Fletcher. The beast comes out, pretty much.
Yeah.
And kills her. She basically breaks her back, snaps her in half.
And the effects are cool.
Really cool.
They're cool. He looks cool, and it's like just in the realm of you're buying it.
Yeah.
But I will say, the first time I watched it, I was kind of like, what?
I know, I'm like, so he's just shirtless now, is how it felt.
Well, and in that scene where he crawls on the wall, I'm like, what is this movie? And
Oh, I was so in though. Like, I did think, like, this is crazy. Is this supernatural the whole time? Like, I'm on for the whole ride. That's how I felt. But I do understand anyone who's like, okay, I'm done with this movie.
Well, I was thinking, okay, everyone said this movie was really good, and I was going, oh, okay, so my take is I'm going to like Acts 1 and 2 of this movie.
Okay.
When he starts crawling over the wall. Of course, now I love it.
Uh-huh.
I love all of that stuff. But I think, and especially because he kind of M. Night lost everyone's faith in him. So it's kind of a risky move because you're like, oh, dude, you almost got my trust back. And then he kind of takes it away. And then in the last minute, you're like, and we're back. You did it. But so there's all of this craziness that's going on. He kills Dr. Fletcher.
While all this is happening, Casey is successfully got out of the first room with a nail that she found. She picked the lock, and now she's trying to get to the other door. Meanwhile, she has access to his computer and is seeing videos of other video blogs of other personalities, which ends on Barry, and she sees where he put his hat and grabbed the keys.
Yeah,
which is where she finds
cool
them.
touch.
Very great. So she makes it out. And she is it's still like she doesn't know where she is and she doesn't know how to get out of here. She ends up in the room where Fletcher is, finds Fletcher dead. Leading up to that, actually, she sees Marcia and Claire dead.
Yeah. And
Marcia's been partially eaten, and Claire is in the process of being eaten.
Yeah.
Very great horror, fun.
Very
stuff.
scary.
So,
I wanted to mention something you pointed out that was one of the coolest things about this rewatch is when Kevin or the Beast No. I think it's Dennis at this point. He grabs Dr. Fletcher before he kills her and carries her to the couch. It is like the opposite scene of when David Dunn is carrying his wife up the stairs. Mm-hmm. So it's like David Dunn, when he does that, he has become a hero. And then in this moment,
he's become a full-on villain.
He became a villain. That's like the moment. And it's like that poetic line of it all. Very, very cool.
Very cool. So that's just so interesting to think about too, because when David Dunn carries his wife, when you carry someone like that, it's a very vulnerable state. Mm-hmm. And he carries his wife, he is her husband again, some stuff like that. He is a hero. He is like actualized himself. And Kevin, or the Beast, is the only reason he was able to carry her is because he knocked her out. Mm-hmm. Like his reasons for doing so are bad.
Yeah.
Great. Just great.
So, and I think while the girls are all trying to escape, this is when it's a little before this actually. Kevin goes to a train station.
Yeah.
Like the main train station, Philadelphia, buys some flowers, and he sets them by the train. And you're sitting there and you're going, no way, because we find out in Glass, Mr. Glass opens up his file and finds out that Kevin's father was killed on the East Rail 177.
In this movie, we do know that his dad died on a train.
We do.
But
I think astute viewers caught that. I
doubt anyone caught it on the first try. Obviously, no one knew first time that this was a connection. But it is also worth noting that Kevin is the true identity.
Yeah, Kevin Wendell Crumb.
So his father died when he was young, leaving him with his mother. His mother abused him terribly his whole life. And personalities were created as a defense mechanism, Dennis being the first one created. That's something that Fletcher realizes when she meets him at his place. Right. Because Dennis likes order. That's what he thrives on. And he says that's what you had to do when I was with my mom. Everything had to be perfect. So that's when Dennis was created. Mm-hmm. And all the other characters, for their own reasons, for their own defense mechanisms, they all protect Kevin. Yeah. So Casey's trying to find a way out. She sees scrawled on a piece of paper, say his name, Kevin Wendell Crumb. So he comes in as the Beast, and she says his name, and he snaps out of it. But again, I know we'll talk about it more in Glass. I just want to say how cool it is that Kevin's dad was in the same train as David Dunn, and Mr. Glass created both hero and villain. Mm-hmm. That is so cool. Very cool. It can't be overstated how cool that is. It is like one of those fun things too to think about. So like Kevin's character, his superpower was, it's almost as if it would always lie dormant inside him. Mm-hmm. And it was probably more likely than not that he would go through life and it would never be awakened. Yeah. It was a moment of tragedy that awakened his supernatural part. And it's like, how many people in the world have that supernatural gene lying dormant inside them?
And remember, that's the question Glass asks in its final minute of the movie.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I can't quite remember how the movie ends. And I'm like,
pretty cool.
I like remember this one last scene and I'm like, I really hope it's not that because that's a huge bummer. So
the last scene of that movie is in the train station. And it's Elijah's mom.
That's
Joseph
right. That's right.
And
Oh,
Anya
good.
Taylor-Joy.
I just got genuinely a wave of relief.
What did you think was the last scene?
Well, when Sarah Paulson goes into that restaurant.
Oh, and we find out about the secret coalition.
And she does her whole monologue about how it was all taken care of. And I don't remember anything after that.
Oh, and
which
you're just
would be
like,
really
yeah,
bad.
it wouldn't wrap up character development and stuff.
Also, it would just be bad guy wins.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Pretty cool. Can't wait to watch that movie. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow night. I don't know. Hey, Tad is screaming. That's our cat. So then there's the Jaws shot of him on the train where it's pulling the focus, the zoom while it's dollying in on him as he's turning into the beast. Okay, now he's trying to kill Anya Taylor-Joy, chasing her around, right?
But she calls Kevin. He snaps out of the beast. He tells her where the shotgun is, where the bullets are, and he asks her to kill him because he's like, what have I done? She said something horrible. And he's like, okay, he's thinking like, I've killed people. I killed this woman. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
So you just need to kill me. But the other personalities are protecting him, so they're all coming back, which ends up with the beast coming back out again. And she has the gun. She finds the bullets. She's running out of this place wherever she can, gets to a dead end where there's this barred cell. And it is like, where is she?
It's
she
so
is in
confusing.
an actual dungeon.
Yeah.
But like people work here because there are lockers.
Yeah.
I think when I first saw it, it's like it had to have been some abandoned warehouse where people used to work there.
I think for me, I was just like, I'm just buying, like, this is just a fantastic. I didn't think that there would be an explanation. I thought it would just be like, this is his lair,
Yeah, it's just creepy. It's a basement.
Yeah.
So,
but it's much more than that.
Yeah, she almost gets, she gets hurt by him. He is doing his own bad guy monologue about how the impure need to be feasted on, eradicated, so that the pure is the next level of evolution. We are here.
Pulling the bars open.
Yeah.
That shot is so scary.
Yeah. And at this point he sees that she's scars all over her and she is pure. That's what he says.
Yeah, you are pure, rejoice.
Yeah.
And he runs away.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, that's an odd ending. Like the bad guy just ran away.
Uh-huh.
And then this...
It's like, we just found out he's got superpowers.
Yeah.
Come back, please.
Well, and I think there's a little part of me the first time, even though I knew it was related to Unbreakable, it's like at this point I'm like, I don't know how this has anything to do with Unbreakable, whatever. And I'm kind of like, again, this is the first time. I love all this stuff now, but I'm kind of going, what? So they're setting up a sequel to this psychological thriller? Like, what are you talking about? And then he runs off, and then we have, the zookeeper comes down.
Well, I just want to say first, I could see a world if this wasn't an Unbreakable thing. Like, let's see, I'm viewing it for the first time again. I could see a world where there is no sequel. Like, this is just a standalone thriller because it is revealed throughout the movie that he has a lot of trauma. It's almost like he is a bad guy and I understand why kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's going to go out and, I guess, do his thing. That's how it kind of felt to me. But anyway.
Yeah, so this zookeeper comes down. He's wearing green, and he pulls her out of the cage, and then she's gonna be okay, but she's gonna go home with her uncle. So her uncle's her legal guardian.
Yeah, so they say that her uncle's here. She's sitting in a police car, and she just gives this look that breaks my heart. And the police officer is pretty much, she sees that look and is like, okay, we have a situation here. Like, she's not going home with her uncle. That's very, I would say, very implied.
Well, what's cool is in Glass, she says that she did tell the police.
And I think because of what she went through, she now has the courage.
Yeah.
I don't know is courage the right word? I don't know. But like she now tells someone about what's happening.
Yeah. And that's part of how her and Kevin
are connected.
Connect and stuff in the next movie.
Yeah.
But so then we cut back to the Horde, the Beast, and he's looking in all these mirrors, these glass mirrors, and he's talking to himself, and all his different personalities are talking, and the music's starting to change. It's like twinkling on this piano, and then it starts playing this theme that keen listeners will go, that sounds really familiar, and then the drums kick in from Unbreakable, and the theme from Unbreakable breaks in, and it cuts to a cafe.
The first time you saw this, did you remember the theme of Unbreakable?
No,
okay,
no.
Me neither.
But I would imagine if you'd seen Unbreakable like 3 or 4 times, you'd be like so versed in this theme because it's pretty iconic.
Yes, it is.
So you just hear the and it feels kind of triumphant almost, and you're like, what? And then it cuts to the cafe, and it's on the news, and it's talking about this character who people are already calling the Horde, who has escaped.
And this lady says, "Oh, it's a weird name. It's like that guy that the news gave a weird name a couple years ago. What was that guy's name?" And
then the camera goes down the line, and you see that Bruce Willis is sitting behind the woman, and he's wearing security outfit, and he saes, "Mr. Glass." And then
we're fist pumping the air.
It cuts.
Yeah.
And you actually, remember, it actually shows the Beast mirror scene. The drums come in, and it says "Split."
Yeah.
As like a title card, and then it cuts to the cafe, which is even cooler because I feel like if you are familiar, you're going, the drums just kicked in. What is going on? Or it just says "Split." Like, what?
Yeah, I'm curious at in this split second moment of time for someone where they're like, they do recognize it as Unbreakable, and they do recognize this is the same director.
Yeah,
they're like, Did he just rip off his own theme like crazy right now?
Yeah.
There's probably a split second of someone, or people are whoever they went to the movie with. They're
guess
just
it's
gripping,
connected, but I don't know.
They're gripping the handlebars, so like white knuckling the handle. Yeah.
Well, and any viewer who really enjoys, or any listener rather, who enjoys this series, I would really recommend listening to Blank Check's episode on Split. Which is a podcast I love, but their episode on Split, one of the guys, David, he's a film critic, and he talks about, I think he was at the first screening, and he talks about how no one knew about it, and how he was really familiar with that stuff, and when the drums kicked in, he's like, what is happening? Mm-hmm. And it's a great episode.
And
it's one of my favorites of the show.
Movie at that point, right? Like he was, sounded like he was pretty unsure the whole time.
Well, he had a great thing on Letterboxd where he said, this movie completely lost me and then completely brought me back in the final minute of the movie.
Yeah.
And said something like, M. Night's back, baby, or something. Or Patrick might have said that. Anyway. But I would recommend listening to that, too, if you liked it. But don't listen to their Glass episode until you've heard our Glass episode.
Yeah.
What a ride. It's a really good movie. Mm-hmm. And it's a nice, tight thriller.
Yes, it is.
We love a good tight thriller.
Very streamlined. There's a lot. They covered a lot of things, but
yeah, they have to get through a lot.
It is streamlined.
But yeah, I love it. This month on patreon.com/MicahMcCaw, you got to head over there to listen to our 2021 Oscar predictions and maybe things we would have nominated. I don't know exactly. We haven't recorded it yet. We still got 2 movies to watch. Mm-hmm. So go check that out for as little as $3 a month. Get your extra episode, please. Come on. And if we get to 50 listeners, we're going to cover every single Pixar movie and do a spin-off podcast called MPU goes
50
to
patrons.
50 patrons. We're going to do MPU goes to Emeryville and cover all the Pixar movies, even those that don't have sequels. So come on, baby. Get on it. And also, have fun out there. Frankly.
Yeah.
Have fun.
But not too much fun. Wear that mask. Stay safe.
And next week, we're covering Glass, and then we're going to jump right back into Batman.
Yep.
With Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. So you got a slate, but we're giving you a lot of fun movies to watch, frankly, this year. This year's been fun movies.
2021, we made the New Year's resolution. No more bad movies.
Although we have covered...
I know.
Hannibal Rising, Dead Man's Chest, and On Stranger Tides, which are unequivocally horrible.
Yeah.
And Red Dragon. I'm going to put that in there.
Sure.
But it's watchable. Bye.